sermon series, and it's a sermon series that really needs a little bit of an introduction so that we can get the most out of this series and understand how it all works and fits together. And it's a sermon series in a book of the Bible that when the senior minister announces that this is the book of the Bible that we're going to be studying, that the staff all say, "Oh no," and the congregation all say, "At last." And the book of the Bible is, of course, Revelation. Now, here's the good news. We really are actually going to study the book of Revelation together, but bad news is we're only doing chapters 2 and 3, which are the easy bits. We might come back to chapters sort of 4 to 22 at another time when I retire, and we'll see how we go. But in order to understand chapters 2 and 3, we really need to just get a little bit of insight into chapter 1, because that sets up all of chapters 2 and 3. So that's what I'm going to do for us for just a few minutes this evening. And I want to say this is a perfectly timed series for us, because it will both inoculate us against error and help us prepare for a new year of serving Jesus Christ. Why do we need inoculating against error, and why do we need preparation to serve Jesus Christ? Well, it's because more and more in more and more churches, in more and more places, in more and more ways, the worldwide Church of God, and I'm talking about Christian people everywhere, are losing a true vision of what Jesus is actually like. We've lost an understanding of what Jesus is actually like. And in so many places, Jesus is seen as no more than, in fact, I sort of think of it a bit like this. Remember the Ghostbusters movie? Remember the big marshmallow man in the Ghostbusters movie? Well, he was like evil and wandering around throwing marshmallow at people. But people picture Jesus a bit like a massive marshmallow man who's just there to give you a really big cuddle. And you can sort of bite off a bit and it'll taste sweet. And everything's going to be okay. As if Jesus is sort of just some big, massive jelly monster that's going to cuddle you and tell you everything's going to be okay, even when you've completely disobeyed everything that he's got to say. And this is more and more the picture of Jesus that people have in the world, that Jesus is little more than just someone who says to you, you might have done the wrong thing, but it's okay, I wasn't watching. And you don't need to worry. And it's sort of all around this whole concept of Jesus being one who just loves. Now, I like to sit down and watch the Queen's Christmas message. You know, watch the Queen's Christmas message. About 5 minutes, excellent. I like to watch the Queen's Christmas message each year. She's a keen Christian, and she has said some great gospel things in her message over the years. This year, to tell you the truth, I was a little bit disappointed, because she spoke about Jesus as not a lot more than just a great inspiration to reconciliation and acceptance of all people. Now, of course, Jesus was into accepting all people. In fact, he was criticised for accepting people. The Pharisees would say, "Why are you eating with these people? What are you doing?" And that's all good and right. But to sort of just boil Jesus down to reconcile with people and accept everyone actually completely subverts the nature of what Jesus is all on about. That is not the picture of the Jesus in the Bible. And so what I do want to do is open up with you Revelation chapter 1 and read to you from verse 9 to verse 20, the picture of Jesus that we have that sets up our thinking for Revelation 2 and 3. So read along with me, Revelation chapter 1 from verse 9. I, John, and this is the Apostle John who wrote John's Gospel in 1, 2 and 3 John, your brother and companion in the suffering and kingdom and patient endurance that are ours in Jesus, was on the island of Patmos because of the word of God and the testimony of Jesus. On the Lord's day I was in the Spirit, and I heard behind me a loud voice like a trumpet, which said, "Write on a scroll what you see and send it to the 7 churches, to Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea." I turned around to see the voice that was speaking to me. And when I turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands, and among the lampstands was someone like a son of man, dressed in a robe reaching down to his feet, with a golden sash around his chest. The hair on his head was white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were like blazing fire. His feet were like bronze glowing in a furnace, and his voice was like the sound of rushing waters. In his right hand he held 7 stars, and coming out of his mouth was a sharp, double-edged sword. And his face was like the sun shining in all its brilliance. When I saw him, I fell at his feet as though dead. Then he placed his right hand on me and said, "Do not be afraid. I am the first and the last. I am the living one. I was dead, and now look, I'm alive forever and ever, and I hold the keys of death and Hades." Who's that a picture of? That's Jesus, right? The one who is dead and who's alive. Well, verse 19, "Write therefore what you have seen, what is now, and what will take place later. The mystery of the 7 stars that you saw in my right hand, and of the 7 golden lampstands is this. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, or the messengers of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands are the 7 churches." So there is a picture of Jesus, and this Jesus is, where is he? Among the lampstands, that is, among the churches. This is a picture of the Jesus who is in the church and among us and meeting with us as we gather together as God's people. And Jesus has then given out through his messengers 7 messages to 7 different churches. And I take it in the book of Revelation, the number 7 is sort of a perfect number, or a complete number. Here is a message for churches of all time about what the church should be like, how we should live in light of the fact that Jesus is here with us. And so for this reason, as we read through these 7 little messages, I've called this series this. This is what it's called. The title of this series is this: Warming and Warning. Okay? Warming and Warning. Or you can call it warning and warming. I don't mind whether you want to go alphabetical or the other ones. That's up to you. But what we see when we have a picture of Jesus like this, the one who is in our midst, powerful among us, then we ought to be warmed. Our hearts ought to be warm because Jesus, who has conquered death, is here with us, and he is taking us with him to glory. And there'll be a big theme that will come through of us being those who will be victorious and overcome in life and through death. But also, friends, be warned. Be warned that this is the Jesus who is among us, who has called us to live his way as his people. And he's not going to just give you a little cuddle and tell you it's all okay. He wants you to live in obedience to him. So through this series, look ahead to be warmed and warmed. And now we're going to have the first of our Bible readings.